Hey everybody, welcome. It's Jordan the Urban Outlander. I'm so happy to have you here. This week Outlander is not premiering a new episode, so we gotta wait another week. And after all of the drama of episode 7, it's just kind of a bummer. So I thought I would take this week to talk about The Fiery Cross, the book on which season 5 is based, and how much I can't stand this book. I just want to break down a couple of things that I love most about the book that I'm curious to see if they're going to do at all in the show. And then I'm going to talk about all the things I can't stand, which is a nice way of saying I hate. For anybody who has not read the books and is worried about spoilers in this video, do not worry. When I sort of talk about upfront the things that I like about the book, I can objectively say there are no spoilers. It's really not even like any twists to plots or anything. It's just really about what some of the characters do, and there's no big reveals here. There's just some nice character moments. But when I do start talking about all the things I hate about this book, it does concern a lot of what happens in the end. So yeah, there are going to be some spoilers there. But don't worry, I'll give you a heads up. Let's dive into The Fiery Cross. Oh, I'm so excited. There are 3 things I love the most in this book, and they all happen in the second half of the book. There were some things I liked when I was paying attention to the first part of the book, but then, later on I just stopped caring. First, Brianna kills a buffalo. I really like that scene. It's in chapter... son of a... If you're in the paperback edition, it is page 1161 when it starts getting good. Basically, a buffalo shows up in the backyard of Fraser's Ridge, and this is right after Jamie is poisoned by a snake, and Claire's trying to make him well, and she's threatening to cut off his leg because it's like getting infected or something. And a buffalo shows up in the backyard, and she runs out, and Marsley's there freaking out. Jemmy's there tied to a fence, and there's this great description of Brianna coming out of the woods with an axe. She was running silently, axe in her hand, and her face was set, inward and intent. I had no time to call out before she reached it. She had drawn back the axe, still running, swung it in an arc as she took the last step, and brought it down with all her strength, just behind the huge beast's ears. A thin spray of blood flew up and spattered on the pumpkins. It bellowed and lowered its head as though to charge forward. It goes on, but it's an interesting little action scene that I actually really enjoyed, because there was something about, for me, seeing these pioneer women, even though Claire and Brianna are the 21st century or 20th century time travelers, but whatever, the pioneer women, you gotta watch out for those buffaloes. And I kind of did like that visual of Brianna running out of the woods with this axe and and bringing it down on that buffalo's head. And Gabaldon, of course, goes into very gory detail about when Claire takes her saw that she was about to use to cut Jamie's leg off, and cuts the buffalo's throat, and she goes into some great gory detail about that. I'll spare you, but if you're interested in revisiting that moment, that's on page 1161 of the paperback. Just a really cool, fascinating, gory, action-packed moment in a very non-action-packed book. All right, my next favorite moment in the book is Roger talking about his mom. That is a little bit of character arc and development that we kind of get more of a backstory on what happened kind of before and how he got into the Reverend's, I was about to say ownership, but in Reverend's care. He and Brianna are just having a very nice moment. I think they're in bed and they're trying to go to sleep, and they start talking. Brianna brings up, will Jemmy remember me if something happens to me? Because he's so young, and it sort of launches Roger into memories of when he was a child during the war, World War II. The Germans were bombing London. His memories of him and his mother hiding in an underground bunker or an underground train. It's actually a really beautiful chapter in the book, and It's The Clever Lad, chapter 98, page 1256. I'm going to launch into all of it now and read it to you. I'm not going to do that too. But it is a very beautiful chapter, and you get a lot of interesting insight into his relationship with his biological parents, or what he can remember, or of his mother. And it's really well written and just so very beautiful. And in him remembering his memories of his mother, it's to kind of give Brianna security that no matter what, Jenny would remember her if something were to happen. Really wonderful. And I like the way Gabaldon puts a little button on the end of the chapter. It's a really beautiful, beautiful thing. And I do hope that they do it in the show. It would be nice to kind of, not necessarily a flashback, but if there's like some interesting little moment, because as he's telling the story of what he can remember, at first he doesn't remember a lot of his mother, but then as he starts talking, things start to reveal themselves, and her face is clearer, and what happened in the events and like the last moments they were together before this bomb hit. It's just like really lovely. I'm like, oh shit. Anyway, funnily enough, my next favorite part is the chapter after that, and it's called Brother, and it's chapter 99. It's 1273. It's a letter from Jenny to Jamie. Can I just tell you that I cried at this letter? I was like, because what's happened is, and what we already know from the show, last season, last book, young Anne ran away to the indigenous tribe. Jamie has broken the news to Jenny via letter. I think they say in this book it's been maybe a year or something. He hasn't heard from Jenny. He has gotten no response, no smoke signal, no nothing about her thoughts, her feelings, and Jamie really wants to know. And he has been corresponding with Ian, older Ian, Scotland Ian, and he hasn't really given any insight about Jenny to Jamie in their correspondence. So it's really just like silence from Jenny for quite a long time. And Jamie really needs to hear something from his sister because they're so close. So this chapter is finally a letter arrives. It is like so good. It's so good. I read it twice because it was like so moving. Jenny breaks it down and she's just like, hey, I know we haven't really talked, but there is a reason why I'm writing this letter to you. And there's a little bit of a strangeness that went on with Leary. She's sort of given in the local gossip. I saw Leary with another man and it made me think of you, is basically how she intros this letter. And Jamie's like, who is this guy? You know what? Doesn't matter. And keeps reading. And Jenny just goes on to start talking about their childhood together. Gabaldon writes this beautiful letter in this beautiful passage about Jenny reminding Jamie, remember when, father whipped us because I did something bad and you covered for me. But he whipped us both because you covered for me and I was lying. And she goes into this like moment that through this pain and through like the sacrifice that when they were kids, and they were just kids, so it wasn't exactly life and death, but his act of sort of covering for her and sacrificing, and her lesson that their father gave of her, needing to be punished for lying in the first place, for even letting her brother take the blame for this. And through that act of love, how that has echoed through their adult life, and that as she has gone on and had children, and as she's seen him go through a lot of trials, and when they've been apart and when they've been together, that ultimately, even though he's given her like this really painful news about her son, that no matter what, she still loves and cares for Jamie, and that she was always going to do that anyway. It's like such a beautiful fucking letter. And I cry, and I'm like, and I really hope that they do it in the show. I really hope. We didn't get Jenny last season. It's like, I don't know, I just feel like it's such an important part of their relationship that I just feel like, please God, I need Laura Donnelly, who plays Jenny, to like do a voiceover of some excerpt of this letter, Diana Gabaldon kind of writing at her best, when she kind of crafts moments between characters and like their intimacy and their relationship, whether it is a brother and a sister or whether it's Claire and Jamie or whatever the relationship is. I think Gabaldon does an excellent job of crafting moments and crafting these like very like intimate, emotional moments between characters. And that chapter to me is a perfect example because she just makes me cry. That chapter is so good. Let me talk about all the things I hate, because there's a lot of things. So yes, we're gonna get into spoilers here, and if you don't want to know how the book ends and what happens, then stop the video now. But for all of you who either read the book and are just curious how much I can't stand the book and what about it, you know, let's dive into it. And for those that have not read the book, but you're curious and you don't care about spoilers, well, come on over. Where do I begin? The ending. A while ago, I did do a video when I was like almost halfway through the book, and when I was questioning my reason for living and why I should continue and is it worth it, because this book is like, it's that, you know? So what happened was that I was like really good and I was reading the first part, and then halfway through I was like, I don't care anymore, and I just started kind of like flipping through and reading things that maybe caught my eye, but I was like, and I finally got to the end, and I was so angry, I'm still angry about how this book ends. Here we go. The last 100 pages, she just squeezes in the plot. She squeezes in. This book is 1,420, 30, 40, like 1,440 pages. And I am not joking when I say that. Like, I think in about the last 100 pages or so, she's like, oh, the plot. And then all of a sudden, all this shenanigans starts happening. The first 240 pages, it's about 240 pages, is the longest day of all of our lives, where we go through what is supposed to be the wedding of Brianna and Roger and the gathering of that, because Gabaldon literally breaks it down moment to moment. And that's basically the tone for the entire book. Back to the ending. By her cramming all of the plots that she had planted in the very beginning on that first day of the gathering, that first 240 pages, she plants her plots, right, of what is supposed to happen through the rest of the book. And then she does her thing through all of it, which is a bunch of moment-to-moment, day-to-day writings and little stories that don't do anything with plot, which can be okay. But when it's literally like 1,200 pages of it, that's when I wanted to take offense. And it becomes nonsense. It becomes like logistics, getting characters from one place to another. I gotta get them here because all of this little shenanigans that happens with Jamie and the whiskey and trying to lure Bonnet into a deal with him, and he goes under a different name so that he doesn't recognize Jamie Fraser's name, and all of this wonkiness, it all happens at the end. For me, it's just creates this silliness that is not the first time she does it, because this is prevalent throughout pretty much every book she's written. You get to the ending and it's like this whodunit, because she did this whole somebody killed a slave at Jocasta's wedding murder mystery that comes earlier in the book, and then she feels like we need to really know the answer to that near the end of this book, along with Roger and Jamie trying to kill Bonnet. I don't care about the murder mystery that happened way back in Jocasta's wedding. And that whole point in the book, by the way, was such a waste of time. Oh my God. That was the second longest day in the Fiery Cross series, was Jocasta's wedding. Everybody talks about the gathering. It's like, well, let's also talk about Jocasta's wedding and how long it took to get through that whole day. And the whole killing Bonnet plot that is learned in the first part of the book, because Jamie learns from Lord John Grey via letter that Bonnet is still alive. The whole book is like Jamie trying to kill Bonnet at some point when he gets to it, because there's all this other stuff that happens in the meantime. And so by the end, Jamie needs to take 6 months to teach Roger how to sword fight before they have confrontation with Bonnet, because let's be real, Roger ain't good at a lot. So if there's anything he needs to know, it's sword fighting. Okay, fine. So let's take 6 months to teach Roger how to do that. So there's this pseudo-resolution with Bonnet. And I say it's a pseudo-resolution because while Jamie and Roger are over in some other part, I don't even know, I don't even care, trying to catch Bonnet because they think he's coming in with this shipment and they're going to surprise him with the fighting and the swords and the guns. And then they learn, oh, Bonnet's not here, he's back in Wilmington, where Claire, Marsley, Jemmy, everybody, Brianna, are all back in Wilmington waiting for these two dudes to come back from their killing of Bonnet, right? So we go back to Wilmington. Basically, Claire has a bright idea to go shopping for berries in the forest, or foraging for berries. And Bonnet pops out behind a bush, and Brianna ends up shooting him. She shoots him in the groin. He runs off behind a bush, and nobody wants to go and check if he's dead. Brianna is like, ah. Claire's like, whoa, shit, that was crazy. And like nobody goes and just trails him a little bit, follows him, just like parts a tree branch just to check. None of that happens. And this brings up how you can't really try to make this logical at all. You can't try to force real world into like these fantasy worlds, these fantasy fiction worlds, also known as reality is not an excuse for fiction. This happens all the time, and I'm guilty of it too. I'm guilty of it right now because I'm asking this question. When we watch things, for instance, TV shows, or we're reading a book, and us as a sophisticated, smart audience, we ask questions like, why is she going in there? Why did that happen? What is this? And it's like, you can't ask these real world questions and apply it to these fictional worlds. And so here I am asking, why doesn't Brianna, run over and just be like, hey, just want to make sure he's dead, because I don't know, this man has been haunting your dreams, traumatizing you for like the whole book, into the last book. Nobody goes to check, like, and just like makes me crazy. We've waited so long in this whole book for somebody to freaking kill Bonnet. You get the chance, Brianna, and everybody's like, well, I guess that's that. And it's like, oh my God. But I understand there are more books. There is a book 6, and it's perfectly clear that we need Bonnet to survive so that he can pop up again. Fine. And also what makes me insane about that whole Bonnet thread, Roger and Jamie, it takes them 2 days to come back to Wilmington. And then they show up and all the ladies are like, whoa, you're never gonna believe what happened. And they relay the whole story. And the first thing that comes out of Jamie's mouth, this is commenting about how Brianna shot Bonnet. And he replies, well, if you only take off a finger or one of his balls, lass, he might survive, Jamie observed, grinning at her. Would not improve his temper, though, I did not suppose. Fast forward to the very end of that chapter, and he's saying to Claire, you did right, Claire, he muttered at last, mouth against my ear. But for God's sakes, never do it again. Never, go on your own and like try to shoot somebody, whatever. So this is what his response is after all of this. After an entire book, Jamie wants to know if Bonnet's still alive. We established that in the beginning with the letter from Lord John Grey. We spend the whole book not even really dealing with Bonnet. He pops up at Jocasta's wedding, by the way. And then they're like, well, whatever, we gotta figure out who killed this slave. And it's like, blah! Like Bonnet showed up, and everybody's just like, well, we're just gonna sit and drink some tea and talk about who killed a slave. And it's like, and then we finally get to the Bonnet stuff at the end, and that's your response, Jamie? It's just like mind-boggling. But this to me is Gabaldon at her worst. She is terrible with plot. And I think this book is a good example. I mean, she does this like in almost every book, but I think this is even more crystal clear in this book. And she finally crams all the plot at the very, very end and creates silliness. I mean, that's the best word I can come up with when I think about sometimes how she tries to construct her plots. It becomes silly. The silliness shows up in every book. It's a little bit less in book 1, season 1. You know, Randall gets run over by Coup at the prison. Like, that's their great idea on how to, like, get him out of Wentworth to, like, free Jamie. Okay, fine. So, like, there's a Coup stampede, hopefully. So then it starts really upping the ante in, like, season 2. I felt like the silliness crept in with the whole Saint-Germain and Master Raymond over at King Louis. Claire's there, and the dark arts scene. It's that whole Star Chamber scene, the Faith episode, basically. It's so funny, because to me, I love that Faith episode, but that Star Chamber scene, I can't stand. I think it weakens that episode so much. But anyway, there's a little bit of, like, silliness there with the whole little game and the charade and, like, ugh. Book 3, season 3, is where I think it even gets, the silliness comes in strong. Galus in Jamaica, and the stones, and the prophecy. I need the stones. I need to kill Brianna. It's this just book 4 or last season. We have, you know, Jamie mistaking Roger for being the man who attacked Brianna. Like, that's a whole other thing, right? That whole silliness in order to get Roger to get off with the Indians or the Mohawk, and like that whole thing, and then whoops, I guess I mistook him. What's her name? Mistakes Roger for Bonnet, and maybe there are others that you can think of, or maybe you want to completely rebuke me on all of this. But I feel like those are good examples of how Gabaldon's plots are like, and maybe this isn't what it really is, but it feels like they're afterthoughts for her, because she loves to go on tangents. She has said that, and it's very evident and clear in all of her books that she likes to go on little tangents. These, like, again, crafting moments and scenes between characters, or characters in nature wandering around, or whatever it is, and they are lovely. They don't move the plot forward, but that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to sort of wander along with her, and then eventually we get back to some sort of plot. But by that point, it just feels, frankly, half-assed, and it feels weak, and it feels silly. And there were, like, other things that happened at the end of this book, but I was so fed up that I just literally was like, Young Ian shows up again. I don't really know what happens. I don't really care. You know, they kind of figure out that Jemmy can go through the stones, I think. I don't really know how they figure it out, but there's, like, a little thing in there. I don't care. In many interviews with the writers of the show, I've noticed a common theme that pops up, which is things that work in the book but cannot work in the show. Things that you can read that, like, you accept and maybe you don't think about as hard, but if you're trying to adapt it for the show, it would not work. I think this book is a really great example of that. For instance, if they were going to adapt The Gathering, it would take, like, 3 episodes. And I'm telling you right now, nobody would want to watch it. Like, and for those who were like, oh, I sit through 3 episodes of The Gathering, I can tell you right now, no, you wouldn't. You get through, like, halfway through the 2nd episode and you'd be like, this is pretty boring. And maybe it's okay while you're reading it. Maybe you liked it more than I did reading it, but it doesn't work in the show. And so they kept it to 1 episode, which I felt like was the right choice. The majority of this book, it's non-events, a lot of tangential writing, scenes, moments. Jemmy has Croup. Let's all learn about Croup and how they're all gonna treat his Croup. It's like really moment to moment, bit by bit stuff with the characters. Not a lot that happens. In this season, episode, I think it's about 4 or 5, when they go to Brownsville. You know, in the book, they all go to Brownsville. Jamie is collecting men for his militia because there is an expected confrontation with the regulators in Hillsborough. And he's got to quickly round up some men to be prepared for this anticipated skirmish. They get to Brownsville, and then Tryon sends a letter, and he's like, oh, never mind. There's no confrontation. You all just go home. And it's so anticlimactic. And in the book, I was like, what? Yeah, like we just spent this entire time with them, going, traveling around, getting these men, going to Brownsville, the whole thing with the baby and the man in the attic thing happens. You know, this all these things happen, and then they got to turn around, go home. Mildly tolerable in the book, but in the show, thank goodness, they didn't do that because you can't have this build up to this supposed event and then be like, ah, never mind. No, audiences would not be into that. In summary, this is the first time I've ever done a video, I think, on her books. At least the first time I've done a video on how much I can't stand one of her books. It's a shame, really. But you know what? This happens. Not every writer is perfect. And sometimes, you know, your favorite band comes out with a bad album. And for me, this is the bad album of the Diana Gabaldon band. You know, there are elements I said that I do like, and I'm curious to see if they do it. I feel like they're not going to do the buffalo scene for the show, for the same reason why they didn't show Jamie killing a bear in season 4. You know, it's very expensive. And I don't think Scotland has any buffalo. We, in the United States, barely have any buffalo because we've killed pretty much all of them all. Let me know what you liked about the book, and let me know, you know, if I missed any other good moments. And let me know if there are things that you did not like. And you may be wondering, why did you even bother reading the rest of the book, Jordan? Because maybe I like pain. I don't know. Maybe I like being tortured. I like to know things. And there's just something about me not getting at least a gist of what happens during this book that I couldn't stand not knowing. So I just soldiered through and read the whole thing. Kind of read the second half. You may think I'm crazy. And you are right. I am a crazy fan. I'm going to see you next week for episode 8. And we have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 5 more episodes of Outlander season 5. So we'll see if there's any buffalo. We'll see if there's any Roger talking about his mom. See if there's any Jenny letter to Jamie that might make us cry. Maybe the writers will find better ways to deal with Diana Gabaldon's plot in this book, or maybe they won't. I do like the season, so I'm looking forward to see what happens, no matter what. Thanks for watching. Thanks for holding my hand through this tough reading. Catch me on theurbanOutlander.com. Catch me on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Leave a comment, subscribe. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about the Fiery Cross, or if you didn't even bother reading the Fiery Cross, and maybe I've already convinced you that you shouldn't. Mwah.